Everyone, welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. BST, every day of the week where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the Pacmoon market, the coin that will not go down. I'm your host, Bchek. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary, and Sammy, and we're going to discuss all the things I just mentioned. But just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is financial advice. This modern market is exceptionally risky. We do not know anything for sure, not even the things we've said already. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Legendary, it is Tuesday. It is the 4th of June. You seem to be in a good mood. I'm a little bit suspicious of that. How are you doing, my friend?
GM, I'm in a fantastic mood today. Yeah, for no
Why
particular
though?
reason.
Why?
No reason. Maybe just because I had better sleep than yesterday. Maybe it's the Pacmoon airdrop. Maybe it's all the things together.
It was
I've
too
been.
good. It was too
It's
good
too
off air.
good. It's too good. Yeah, it's too good. But I'm also not in London, so I'm in Austria. I can be like in a bit of a better mood and don't have to fit like the British, less outgoing, more like restrained kind of mood. But I've
Just
been
don't show
rewatching.
your emotions ever. This is the way.
Can,
As soon as you
can do
touch down
that.
in London, that's what you have to do.
You can't do that in Vienna though. But I've been rewatching some of our Spaces videos, like
Okay.
especially with the clips that we've been doing, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm very well aware of it. Like out of the three of us, I'm the one who is fidgeting around the most, watching my phone because I need to check the audience,
Hmm.
looking down at my table, looking left, looking right. And I'm just very mesmerized with the fact how like Sammy manages to perfectly look into the camera like for minutes and minutes at a time without like fidgeting around too much. And I'm like, that's a skill that I probably need to train.
Well, yeah, we said this at the start. You're like a caged monkey at the
Yeah, I
beginning.
still am a caged monkey who's put in front of a camera and is hosting a daily spaces.
Yeah, but
I
no,
think
you've
that's a
got
good.
way better at the beginning, man. At the beginning, at the beginning, it was like definitely caged monkey. Now you're like trained monkey.
No. I was an uncomfortable caged monkey, and I'm a happy caged monkey.
Yeah,
That's the
you're still in
difference.
the cage,
Yeah,
but
I'm still in the
you
cage.
you've gone more comfortable. Sammy, how you doing, man? Where do you sit on this caged debate? You seem very comfortable in general, but how are you feeling generally?
I'm good. I actually didn't notice you being fidgety. I thought like recently, I think you've been really good. Like I just hadn't noticed that at all. So I thought you've been nailing it. The fact that you brought that up, it's just I think it's one of those things where you know your own like personality traits, so you kind of
100%.
hyper focus on them. Whereas I think others are oblivious to it. I think it's it kind of I think it's pretty natural now. I think we need some more photos to do the shocked faces and things like that. Get an upgrade.
Dude, but when I'm cutting those clips, that's basically the reason why it's mostly like B and U, and I'm cutting myself out of them unless it's one where I speak. It's because it's literally otherwise it would be B or U speaking 30 seconds, 45 seconds about a topic, and I'd be like looking to the left, looking to the right, grabbing my phone, not focusing a single second on having eye contact. Like, yeah, that's too distractive. So hence I go with the two of you most of the time.
One mitigating factor before we get into the headlines, which are just about to come up, we're going to get into all of the market action, the headlines as well. But it does show, I guess, for the people who are curious of like what it takes to do this stuff live. Like we are legit not just sitting here talking to each other. Like if it was just that, I actually don't know what that would feel like to have a pure conversation where you're not trying to do 7 things at the same time. Like we don't have producers, we have no audio people, we have no sound people, we have no people in YouTube, people are dealing with the comments. Like this is all we are legit doing like 7 things at the same time, trying to make sure we know in what direction the show is going in at the same time as replying to people in case they have something interesting to say either on Twitter or on YouTube. So to be fair, you are kind of keeping on top of a lot of interesting data points and comments as well. And that's the thing, it's not just comments, it's also data points because we want to know like, okay, if I'm rambling about this particular thing, is everyone leaving at the same time? We want to know that. And that's why Legendary is just looking at his phone, checking if anyone is bored or if there's any emojis going up at all. So that's a little bit behind the scenes stuff, just for context. But look, we want to get into all of the market updates, as always, coming to you from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. And then we're going to get into a bigger discussion on all of that. We've also got a little special blast segment as well today, which we're going to bring to you. So starting with a snapshot, which is pinned up top. If you do find it brings you some value today, please do give it a like. We're going to start with the price action. We have crypto pretty flat, pretty safe, pretty sound. Bitcoin at 69.1K, ETH at 3.8, Solana at 165, all flat. Getting into the headlines, which we're going to get into a bigger discussion on all of these topics in just a little bit. Number one, OSF announces Rekt brand's equity share now is available to claim for Rekt NFT holders. That is pretty damn cool. Very, very cool to see. Mando wrote, giving equity in a company to NFT holders is not easy. And most of the time they just get forgotten. Even if you don't own a Rekt Guy, you should be supporting this. Definitely want to reflect on that a little bit. That's very cool from Ovi and the team. Next, Pacmoon drops $1 million of Pac to creators and the price holds up at 180 million FDV. We want to reflect on the price action from Pac, but also this very smart way they seem to be going about distributing their token. We've spoken a lot about how low float, high FTV coins have really struggled. They're doing something really, really interesting here, a way to like continue to distribute their coins in waves. And then finally, Dog token on Bitcoin is approaching a $1 billion market cap. This stuff on the Bitcoin side of things is really heating up, it seems. Every day now, we seem to be reporting on more volume and higher prices there. So I want to touch on that too. Going around the NFT prices, we've got CryptoPunks down a couple of percent at 32 ETH. Bored Apes up 7% at 12.7 ETH. Mutants also up 6% at 2.2. Not sure what caused these big spikes. Maybe one of you guys know. DGods at 1.2, Captains at 3.6, Azuki's at 4, Penguins at 10.4, Mad Lads at 67, Solana, and the Nouns winning bid was at 4.8 ETH. Legendary, that is the price action. Those are the headlines. Before we get into the bigger headlines today and we go through those one by one and get into the blast section, what is catching your attention in the market?
Yeah, absolutely. If we take a look at the Mintify heat map on the ETH side of things, a collection that I feel like we haven't talked about in a longer while is Pirate Nation. The Founders Pirates are up almost 13% on the day, up to a 0.9 ETH floor. Pretty
explain what Pirate Nation was again.
Pirate Nation is a game based on Arbitrum. Most of it happening on chain. Pretty cool on the tech side of things. They, to me, were outstanding throughout the bear market because they very, very consistently delivered weekly updates on exploring your island, questing, battling other ship with card-based battles. Pretty cool game. And they've
quite expensive. They're at a 0.9 floor. Just sharing it for the people watching on screen.
They've been on a very, very steady climb. Like when I first got into Pirate Nation, it was, what was it? 9 months ago, something like that. They used to be at a 0.2, 0.15 each floor. Wow. And have been like consistently climbing ever since. They did go over 1 ETH at some point, if I recall correctly. Corrected down from that, but have very well recovered and are sitting for the gaming collections, actually, if you compare them to Pixelmon, if you compare to some of the other things, as you said, at a relatively high floor price, which is pretty impressive.
That is interesting. Is this also one of those which is kind of connected to a token? Is that why the price is so high? What's the expectation there? Do you know?
They are still pre-TGE, yeah. So I do think that there are still token expectations tied to the NFTs without having like more concrete details on that.
Interesting. It's so interesting that there was across the gaming sector, there was this point of time, I don't know, at the back end of last year, where if you bought anything and just waited until now, you just be up because you just got in pre all of the TGE hype. And there was just so much room to run for all of these projects. That's interesting to note. Thanks for that, Legendary. Sammy, what about you? What's catching your attention in the market before we get into the headlines?
Well, actually, just on this Pirate Nation stuff. So Proof of Play actually raised about 33 million last September, wow. Which is a pretty significant amount of money. And I know some of these games cost a lot of money to actually build out. But if you do compare that to how much Pixelmon raised with their mint proceeds and then the subsequent rounds, it kind of makes sense as to why they're kind of alongside similar sort of floors to the Genesis assets. And I think that we've got mentions in the comments that Solas says that the season 1 of Booty Airdrop ends soon. So there is a lot of speculation around that, the gameplay. And I do see a lot of the gaming KOLs talking about it. especially in some of the Discord chats. And I think because of their funding and the valuations that they've kind of raised at, I think there's a lot of hype around this and there's a lot of promise. So it's definitely one to watch.
Yeah, shout out to Solas in the comments. Also, Juicy Jammer on YouTube saying the game is a lot of fun too. That's ultimately the best thing. Like for a game, that's the ultimate intention, right? Like, yes, okay, you've got this additional incentive of a token, but you want to make the game fun and make people want to play it irrespective of whether they're going to get the token or not. Kusho, I just see you with your hand raised. I know that you are also very across the gaming side of things, very cognizant of like which games are fun, which games are not. What are your thoughts on Pirate Nation here at 0.9 ETH?
GM, I think Pirate Nation is at point 0.9 ETH for very, very good reasons. First of all, I think it is one of the fully on-chain games that's very, very close to a breakout case right now because it's getting a lot of traction with players. It's a very simple game to play and it plays very easily on any kind of system and it's a browser-based game. Also, they've integrated properly with a lot of NFT and crypto communities as part of their questing for booty points. So like they've integrated a bunch of Discord communities across the board and across ecosystems, even though they themselves are built on their own particular blockchain now. They're no longer on Arbitrum. They're on their proof of play blockchain right now. And they've been doing a good number of transactions. All actions in game are on the blockchain as well. And they've also integrated with a bunch of community built apps that make it sort of like a modified game by other communities. So like GG Quest, for example, has built a questing platform and has allowed people to play games and earn XP on our own platform that is integrated directly into Prioritization. And there's a lot of other people doing similar things like that across the board. So it's a very, very interesting ecosystem right now, and people are getting very excited by it, especially with the fact that booty points, I'm not sure if they were retroactively added, but they've been done in such a way that many players have a huge amount of points, huge amount of booty points, and there are very, very few people in the ecosystem that are still paying attention to Pirate Nation right now.
Okay, that's really interesting additional context. Thanks for that, Kusho. It clearly does seem to be the case that this outreach that people need to do in order to grow and be more successful seems to be very, very important. It reminds me a little bit of what I saw from the Nifty Island team, and I actually interviewed the founder, Charles, quite some time ago, and just seems like just really good at outreach, really good at getting people on board, reaching out to different communities, getting them participating, finding out ways that incentives can align to get them participating. And that's the way to grow, I think, ultimately. So interesting points there. Appreciate that, Kusho, as always. I feel like before we get into the little blast segment and the headlines, got to touch on this price action for Yuga Labs assets, I guess. Just sharing the Mintify heat map again. We've got Bored Ape up 6%, Mutant up similarly 6%. Look, it's not like a world-changing change, but they do seem to be in decline, then they kind of pump up again, and they just go down. Any comments from either of you guys on this kind of price action here? Is this a short? Because that just seems to be what happens. They go up and then they go down again. What's your thinking, either of you?
To be honest, I think it's just trending. Like if you look at the sort of mid to long term price action, it's literally just ranging between that 10 and sort of 13 ETH floor. So I think it's going to continue doing that until we have either like an inflow of liquidity back into ETH NFTs, or there's some bullish news around the Yuga ecosystem. I think it's just going to continue around this area for at least the short term future. But it'll be interesting to see because there's a lot of threads being written about the revival of ETH NFTs, like historical NFTs, like where they are now. I just think we need that news to come through, and then all of a sudden the attention just shifts to that. But I think everyone's kind of focused on meme coins at the moment, celebrity coins and GME stocks, all this kind of stuff at the moment. So it'll be interesting once that attention does shift back to NFTs, whether we do get that price action, like proper price action pump.
Yeah, that's a good point. it does seem to be the case that everyone is focused on the NFT, the coin side of things. I just wanted to share this one piece of data point before we get into the blast segment as well. Legendary, we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We have this data point from Croissant that, and I'm showing this on the screen, this graph for people who are not able to see. It says more tokens have been made in the last few months than in the entire history of Ethereum from 2015 to 2023. And the graph kind of shows the number of tokens by blockchain. And well, this is on Ethereum one. So Optimism, Ethereum, Base, Blast, and Arbitrum. And it seems to be the case that on the bar charts at this in these new bars that are incredibly high, there's huge amounts of coins being produced on Base, it looks like, some on Optimism as well. And I would say it's Base. It's the big differentiating factor at the moment is these Base coins that are getting launched, which is clearly distinguishing this period of time from all the other periods of time. Legendary, do you have any thoughts or comments on this, in the sense, we've talked a lot about these tokens coming to market and there being too many, but also just interesting to see how many there are on Base at the moment. What are your thoughts, sir?
I found a super interesting chart because, like, one of the posts that I see so frequently on my timeline is meme coin FTVs by blockchain, biggest meme coin on Solana, biggest meme coin on whatever L2, and then I don't know, Blast, Pacmoon is so small in comparison to that. And then I also think about Avalanche with their 100 mil cultural fund, which we all found a quite cool idea when we talked about it in the show, but it kind of seems like they were trying too hard with it because they're not in nearwhere as prominent with coin launches as Base.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that Base managed to like basically be the Solana of ETH L2s when it comes to token launches, when it comes to coin launches, that like all the activity is congregating there. And I wonder why that is the case. Is it because you just had those very successful run-ups with Brett and some of the other tokens, and people then see, oh, okay, there's liquidity, there's meme coin traders there, so you naturally gravitate to launch your own token there? And also, is it still driven by the speculation that at one point Coinbase, quote unquote, will have to list one of those tokens on their exchange as well? Hence, we rather operate on that L2 driven by that speculation. But I find it very fascinating how like quite a lot of L2s have competed to get their own little meme coin season. There was a mini Polygon meme coin season with airdrops. There was an Arbitrum one. There was an Omnichain one with OmniCat. And some of the others were like, yeah, the L2 doesn't matter. We exist everywhere. But Base clearly the winner on the L2 side of things.
Yeah, I don't think people like this is a very interesting chart. If you're not looking at it right now, I would suggest, I don't know, just have a scroll through one of our timelines. We're streaming to the Modern Market account, the YouTube account, my personal, Legendary's personal. I think people would be surprised the proportion that Base is producing. Like, especially given how much attention is on Blast from a lot of people. The Blast proportion is very small in comparison with all this stuff. And maybe that's where people expect it to be because, I don't know, it's less mature. There's definitely far fewer coins there, I think, at the moment. But even with regards to Arbitrum and Optimism, which are significantly more mature right now, right? Like Arbitrum's been around for a good amount of time now already, Optimism too. But this absolute domination on the Base side in terms of production. Sammy, do you see this as oversupply? Do you see it as a problem? Is it more, you more thinking that this is bullish for Base? How are you kind of forming some conclusions here?
I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical in the sense that I kind of want to know what these tokens are, because if you think about the killer apps that have come through, or say killer apps so far, you've had Friendtech, which was kind of mid 2023, which you probably end up associating some of that volume from, or the number of tokens launching for that mid 2023 era. And then that blow off top in the back end of last year, you're probably looking at Farcaster, Warpcast, Degen, all that kind of stuff coming through. So I think there are, and obviously there has been a meme coin season on Base for a shorter period than there was on Solana. So to me, it's just like, okay, these apps that people are actually using, they've actually got, like, I don't know, they're attracting people in. And I try and think what else is on, say, Arbitrum, Optimism, that equates to that. And I don't know if there necessarily has been. I think that Arbitrum, they've got these layer 3 gaming things like Xi nodes. You've got gaming on IMX and a few other L2s that are kind of pushing. But I just don't think that it's quite the same use case on Base. It seems to be like these applications and this innovations happening, it's drawing people in. So I would be kicking the tires on what actually is those ERC20s. Is it just shitcoins, or is it something else? Is it actual applications that are drawing that interest in? So without actually having a look at seeing what the underlying activity is, it's hard to form a real conclusion. But I do remember when I was writing my newsletter towards the back end of last year, the Farcaster frames was absolutely parabolic. Like, the activity that happened there was insane. So I kind of deduced that there's probably some activity there that's linked to that. And that has since like kind of died off. So I am wondering whether there's other apps that are going to be coming through the pipeline on Base that kind of have that same traction. And I definitely think that when that Coinbase wallet is rolled out, that they get their users that are on the centralized exchanges off the centralized exchanges onto Base. If they can get that seamless transition, then it could be pretty explosive. But yeah, that's yet to be seen yet. But it's definitely one to watch, and I definitely got one eye on Base and seeing what's happening whilst also farming Blast.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely made me realize that, okay, there's way more happening there. And as you say, it doesn't necessarily mean all that stuff is good, right? There's only a few things that catch the headline. But someone else shared a tweet the other day where they had top market cap of coin on Base like 1 billion, because Brett went past 1 billion. Top market cap of coin on Blast 50 million, Pacmoon. And it's just like, the discrepancy is wild right now. And look, people can argue about it for whatever reason, but those are the numbers. Like, fine, we obviously are bullish on Blast, and lots of other people might be too. But in the end, if you can't attract the liquidity in droves to like be in a certain place, then that's just the way it is. So you cannot fade those numbers, I don't think. So definitely something to keep on our radar. Look, we're going to get into all of the headlines in just a little bit, but every Tuesday now we are doing a little Blast segment. This week I am leading the segment because last week Legendary had the gaming segment. It was a great segment. If you didn't check out our video on it, I think that was pretty fun. Please do. But there's a lot of activity, a lot of gaming stuff. You've got a lot of like strategy, a lot of playing. I'm more of a lazy farmer. So we're going to do a little segment this time where I go through one of my more lazy strategies, trying to hit as many things as possible with as few actions as possible. So what I'm going to talk about today is Ethena on Blast. So just to set you guys up, Ethena is the fastest USD asset to reach $3 billion in crypto history. It has already given us one lucrative airdrop with its coin Ethena trading at a $15 billion market cap, and its second airdrop is coming soon. This is why I like the exposure and how I'm tying it in with some Blast L2 farming. So just a bit of context first. While some describe it as a stable coin because it is going after the stablecoin market, Ethena's USDE is best described as a synthetic dollar because it is not backed by dollars. A quick point on the size of the opportunity from the Ethena website. They say that stablecoins and other relatively stable, fully backed assets intended to approximate the dollar is one of 1 trillion plus opportunities in this space, with an immediate $5 billion of an addressable market by embedding USDE into exchanges and capturing market share within DeFi as a reserve asset. So this is obviously a very big deal. We've spoken a lot on the show about how stablecoins are a very, very big market. But what is USD actually backed by? So a quick explainer. USD is backed by a delta neutral ETH position. In other words, each USDE is collateralized by a long staked ETH position, which is simultaneously offset by an equivalent ETH perpetual futures contract, short position. So if the price of ETH moves from 3,000 to 2,500, the short ETH per position will subsequently offset the $500 price swing. Similarly, if the price of ETH increases to 3,500, the short ETH per position will subsequently decrease $500. And because funding and basis spread has historically generated a positive yield, given the mismatch in demand and supply for leveraging crypto, this is where the interest comes from when you stake your USDE to make it staked USDE. So in terms of when the next airdrop is for Ethena, the second airdrop is planned for September the 2nd, 2024, or when USDE supply reaches $5 billion, whichever comes first. So we don't know 100% when that's going to be, but if you look at the trajectory, what we've just been speaking about, it's hit 3 billion already. And it, based on how things are going, it looks like it should be sooner than September. In terms of its backing, it was backed by really top funds, also backed by very notable angels like Arthur Hayes, Kobe, and Ansem. It's got a bunch of risks attached to it, and we don't have time to go through all of them now, but I will list some of them, and then you can read some more. You've got funding risk, liquidation risk, custodial risk, exchange failure risk, and collateral risk. We'll pin a tweet where I've got some of this information, and there's some further links that you can check out more if you want to read more. But this is what you do. This is what I did a couple of days ago to get both Ethena exposure, because I like this USDE concept, and Blast exposure at the same time, because you obviously know I like Blast a lot. So this is what I do. First, you buy some USDE on Ethena, which Legendary is sharing on the screen if you're watching in. Next, you bridge that USDE using Stargate Finance. So that's a really helpful bridge. Interestingly, it's cheaper to bridge USDE than it is to bridge USDC from Blast to from Ethereum to Blast for whatever reason. Next, you go to Thrustify, which is, remember, the DEX which has the most gold allocated to it to give out to Blast users. And there you can provide liquidity for USDE against USDB. Providing liquidity will get you the following two things. First, it gets you the maximum 30x sats boost, and sats are Ethena's points system. So you get boosted for what you do with your USDE. And if you do this particular thing where you provide liquidity on Thruster, you get the maximum 30x boost, which is obviously good for the Ethena points. And you also get Blast Gold and Thruster credits, which seems better to me than just holding USDE. And finally, in addition to all of that, you can go onto Hyperlock for an extra 5x and a share of 8,000 gold to be distributed to stakers over the next few days as part of this like additional gold rush that they have going on at the moment. So it might seem like a bunch of things to do, but I like this relatively lower risk trade because I'm operating in USD assets and getting exposure to two things I'm bullish on at the same time, which is Ethena and Blast. As always, do your own research, be comfortable with the risks based on your own profile, and good luck. Legendary, that is that little Blast segment for today. A little bit of Ethena exposure, a little bit of Blast exposure. What are you thinking about that?
Haven't done it yet. Like it quite a lot. I also like it with the Stargate route, because if I recall correctly, Stargate token is not out yet.
I don't think so.
By doing that, you might pay a bit more. Like Sammy has pointed out correctly, you can in the meantime also buy USD on Thruster, but if you're just taking the time to bid yourself, might pay a bit more in fees, but might also farm an additional airdrop. And you know how much I like 2, 3, or 4-in-1 strategies. So definitely something that I'm thinking about doing. The only thing with USDE to me is I'm comfortable to do it like with a smaller position size, but I'm definitely not comfortable to throw like all of my stables into that.
Sure.
As you said.
So why is that? What's your kind of concern / you want to just mitigate some risk?
Yeah, I want to mitigate some risk. The thing is, I perfectly understand like the delta neutral hedging that they are doing, and I also know there's an insurance fund just in case if prices slide or pump too quickly, and the basically that hedge is not working out anymore. But I am not sure how big that insurance fund is compared to the total TVL locked. So that is something that I personally would check before I would like feel comfortable to move a good part of my stable coins into that. But very happy. I haven't done it yet. I mean, it was clearly obvious, at least from that wallet, that I haven't had a position like that on Blast yet. But I am happy like to move a bit of my USDB stack into USDE and then have that locked up in Hyperlock. And I found Hyperlock actually pretty cool for like gold distribution to just stake a liquidity pool that you're already having. Like, why not do that?
Okay. I think those concerns are fair, and I would actually echo that in my own risk management strategy. And this is obviously no specific comment on think USD is going to collapse or whatever. It's just like I kind of don't feel comfortable having all of my stables in anything, frankly. Like it's always a bit of a mix. And depending on how I feel, like some will be USDC, some will be USDT. And now it's just cool. I've got another alternative with USDE. And so I kind of allocate appropriately in terms of percentages. Sammy, follow on question. A, what do you think about this strategy? B, how are you dealing with stablecoins on Blast? Would you rather just be in ETH doing stuff there? Are you doing anything in particular with stablecoins that might be different to what we just shared? How are you thinking about those?
So for me, I think the stable coins that I have, I'm trying to maximize the yield. So for me, it's good to farm all these protocols, but I think I'd hold the bulk of my stable coins in a protocol that's been audited that has an insurance fund. So for me, that's Wasabi. It has a decent amount of TVL. So I just chuck it in there, and nice. Unless I need it for something, I've got my ETH stack, I've got my USDB, but I tend to keep it in there and try and I found that the gold distribution from that, especially having the Pacmoon stuff in there as well, it's been pretty lucrative compared to some other places where you can park your USDB. And because it's one of the bigger protocols, it's got that insurance fund. I think I just feel more secure having it in there. But it's not to say that I don't. I mean, I've got some USDE. I've been farming Ethena since it came out on Ethereum mainnet.
Yeah.
Got a fair few Ethena sats. I don't know how I compare. I think there's like 3 trillion sats in the wider market, and I've got a portion, like a very small portion of that. So in terms of airdrop, it's not going to be much. And I think I got maybe my return back on my initial deposit. So actually I got a 2x on the first deposit I made on that first Ethena airdrop. So it's pretty good if you do park some money in there. But again, it is a synthetic dollar. It's not a stable coin. So there is those higher risks that come associated with it. So I wouldn't park all your stables into a synthetic dollar.
Question to the both of you, because it's actually super interesting that stable coin management strategy and thoughts on that. Sammy, you mentioned you're happy to throw your USDB into Wasabi. Are you throwing all of that into that, or is it just keeping some USDB in your wallet? Or more generally speaking, what percentage of your stables is just chilling in a cold wallet, and what percentage is actively like trying to farm some yield?
So I've gone, my risk management strategies like the two extremes. I don't really have much in the middle. So I've got stuff that's in bonds and bank accounts so in fiat that is insured. So that's exactly, what's that? But that's just stuff like house deposit, things like that. I don't own a property yet. So that's stuff where I'm like, okay, well, worst case scenario, if shit hits the fan, then at least all that's insured up to a certain amount. But then that also gives me comfort that I can just chuck a significant amount of my ETH and stables into protocols rather than just having it in a wallet, because if I do lose that, at least I've got that other side of the risk curve to fall back on, and I can build up from scratch. But yeah, I've got it spread across a number of protocols, but for me, because Blast is the go-to and I want to get as much Blast gold as possible, I bridged a significant portion of my liquidity over there, just to farm in USDB in Wasabi. I mean, I had it spread, like the ETH spread across multiple protocols, whether it was farming bids in Blur or in Spacebar, or Wasabi just parked in the WE stuff, their farm there, and earning like 4% or 3% or whatever it is. But stables in Wasabi, you're earning like up to 13, 15%. I think if you just got them in your wallet on Blast, you're earning that native yield anyway, which is probably 10% or something like that. So it's not that much more. But I think for me personally, that extra 5%, and I'm comfortable because they've got that insurance fund. I'm just like, okay, and it's an audited protocol. The risk is fine for me.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say on that is lots of funds, lots of protocols are audited. Somehow it seems to go wrong sometimes with people. But interesting point on Wasabi, they've managed to create such a brand around them that they definitely seem to be like the trusted place. Like if anyone has any spare stuff, you just want to throw it in there, which is amazing for them. Like they've managed to do that with the brand. But me kind of just being slightly more cautious, especially because what I went through with Munchables, which is obviously completely different to Wasabi, but I've kind of got a little bit more, what would you say? A little bit more conservative in the sense that I'll put very specific proportions in different places. And then I actually sit with like a reasonable amount out of any protocol now. And I don't know if this is crazy or not, but like I'll have a reasonable amount of ETH not doing anything technically. I mean, it's on blast, so it's kind of getting the native yield. But I feel like we're going to a part of the cycle where we've worked pretty damn hard to get back here, like after holding through the bear. And I'm just trying to do some risk management where, like, you know, you're not taking this off me. You're not going to take this off me now, or you're going to have to work really hard to take it off me potentially. So trying to go with like highly trusted institutions, not just like because of like, I don't know, they say that they done something, but like broad, very broad social consensus around particular protocols backed by particular people. Yeah, that's my thinking.
And I think, yeah, I think it depends on your risk appetite. It depends on your targets for this cycle. Because if you've got a decent stack of ETH and you're kind of seeing it going to that 10K mark, then obviously a 2.5x from where it is now, just over that. And if that hits your target, then that additional yield you're getting for taking on that additional protocol risk probably isn't worth it. And actually holding it in a cold storage or a wallet that is a lot more secure than just putting it into these protocols they are subject to potential hacks, and going through the process of trying to then recover it. It's like, okay, well, is it worth the stress? I think for me personally, because I don't think I'm at that level that I want to be with my ETH stack or just stables and everything generally, I'm willing to take on that additional risk just to try and get the additional return, to try and hit where I want to be this cycle. And I think it just completely depends on your individual risk appetites as to what you want to get to. So
yeah, I think that's a nice kind of nuanced point to add in there. Legendary, might as well circle back to you to hear your thoughts, how you're thinking about it before we hit the headlines.
I have a different approach to that. For me, all my ETH is productive. Like I barely have 2 ETH or 1 ETH sitting around, and whenever, like, I don't know, I get an additional 5-6 ETH or whatever, that is getting put to work instantly. And that's working across like more than 8 L2s in roughly 30 to 40 protocols doing things. However, with my stablecoins, I'm like very conservative. Like I have 0 USDB in Wasabi. I love Wasabi. I have all my Park and other assets in there, but my stablecoins, they don't do shit. Like I even feel uncomfortable to put them on Aave or wherever. I do like USDB with a native yield earning, but even when shit hit the fan with the DAI supply running dry, I took all of my stables off blast, paid a good amount in fees to do that because I got scared, bridged them back in the next day. So I'm very conservative with my stable stack, but extremely degenerate with my ETH stack.
Interestingly, to that point, Legendary, I don't have many stables on blast because I've just never thought there was any, like, I tried to just take ETH across and do stuff there. Obviously, with this example that we talked about today with Ethena, it was like, okay, I'm willing to do it for this particular thing. But otherwise, my stables are on mainnet, kind of chilling and safe on some level. But I probably maybe do other things with the stables.
I never bridged stables. I just turned ETH into more ETH on blast,
I see.
luckily, and that just went into stables at some point.
Got it. But as soon as you change it on blast, it goes into Maker, right?
Exactly.
So that's the thing. So you've got that
Exactly.
immediate protocol risk as soon as you change it on blast, either way. Interesting stuff. Nice to have that conversation every now and again, just to check in with kind of portfolio management strategies. As we said at the top of the show, we don't know anything for sure. We're all kind of doing things slightly differently depending on our risk appetites and where we are personally and our own personal perspectives. So hopefully that can just be insightful for you guys to apply to yourself in some way that you find helpful. But let's get into the headlines. Kind of spoken a lot on other stuff today, but we've definitely got some cool stuff to discuss. Why not? Let's just go straight to this Rekt Guy news, which was the news that Rekt brands have announced that their share claim is live. So you can go, if you hold a Rekt Guy, you can go to claim.rektbrands.xyz and follow the instructions to start the process. Shares are available to claim for wallets holding Rekt Guy NFTs. The claim window is open until the 17th of June. So you've got a couple of weeks to claim that. Interesting context from Mando. I think it's worth reading again Obviously, he's worked with OSF for a very, very long time, not just in the NFT space, but prior when they were at Barclays together. Just some details and context for this moment in time. He said, I know firsthand OSF has spent an insane amount of time getting this sorted. If you own a Rekt Guy, which was a free mint, you now own part of Rekt brands for free, basically. Giving equity in a company to NFT holders is not easy, and most of the time they just get forgotten. Even if you don't own a Rekt Guy, you should be supporting this. Now you have thousands of holders of an NFT that haven't been left behind and have a crack at taking this brand and making a drinks business with it. This is how a viral success can be made. I want to go straight to you, Sammy, as a Rekt Guy holder. Like, how do you respond to this idea that this could be the way to decentralize brands moving forward? And yeah, how are you excited about it? By it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Rekt Guy holder for probably it's pushing 2 years now, I think. But I to be honest, I held it for the art, and I really enjoyed the brand. I enjoyed what Ovi and Mando were building. I enjoyed the in-person events, and because they were London-based, they had a few, or at least OSFs are London-based. So we had events that were crypto around like NFT London and stuff. So the box is a familiar one, which I'm pretty sure we're going to have our AGMs at. And for those that are familiar with the box, it's quite raunchy. So it's an interesting day out that appealed to many of the guys that were in that community. Yeah. But yeah, I think like the idea of having like NFTs as equity holders, there's obviously a lot of concern around it from a legal standpoint, and they've gone through it in a really good approach, like looking through the legal documents that you have to sign to actually get that equity. It's pretty comprehensive. It's not just a case of like, yeah, I'll claim that equity. There's like a lot of legal documents that you read through, you docs, you sign it. So it's clear that they've gone through a lot of work to get it to this point, which makes me bullish because obviously if they're putting in this work, they intend to grow the brand. And it would be interesting to be as an equity holder to try and get more involved in that and actually continue what they've built over the past 2 years. And I know, so the Plague did something similar. I think they might have announced it before Rekt Guy, but both had obviously had that in the pipeline for some time, probably sought a lot of legal advice around it. And I think having that snapshot in the past, so announcing that you'd already, so the snapshot was back in October 2023. So anyone holding that, I think it was on the 25th of October or 26th of October 2023, they were eligible. So anyone that bought subsequent to that isn't eligible. So because they made that point in time, so it became in the past, there was no, I think that played into the getting around the legal standpoint, which I found quite interesting. And the Plague did something similar. So there's obviously a way that you can do it and to get around those, like the potential for it to be a security and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm bullish. Intrigued to see what happens next and whether there'll be some AGMs to get involved with and actually, become a more active shareholder.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. It does get people excited. Legendary, do you think that this kind of stuff is enough? Do you think this is more than having a financial stake? Because I suspect, although I don't know the details for sure, I suspect the financial aspect might appear small, maybe initially, but is it about more than that? Is it about access? Is it about participation? Is it about being able to get excited with a bunch of other people about something? Or do you think the financial side of it is the main driver for people wanting to participate in something like this?
I think it's both. I think it's emotional and financial. I think just because of the legal setup, we talked about it when the Plague did a very, very similar thing. You go through the legal docs, you have to sign that. There's like a lot of an ordeal happening. Whereas like you buy an NFT and next day, I don't know, you don't like it anymore, you flip it on Blur and you're done with it. So that's like a different level of commitment that you're building. And you are, I mean, if you're a shareholder of a company and you're not a shareholder via an ETF, like you made an active decision to co-own a part of that. Here you kind of made an active decision to own a Rekt Guy, to maybe participate in those events, et cetera, et cetera. And I do think that this is actually like a quite significant step. And I think also we said on the conversation when we spoke about the Plague, that this is definitely not the last company that will do that. And happy to see that thesis being confirmed. Especially makes sense for the Plague with the coffee brand, for Rekt Guys with the drinks that they're building. It is a consumer focused brand. It needs wide distribution. Having like that holder base of a couple thousand super fans that you now also turn into equity owners and incentivize them even further, it's definitely also a smart move from the distribution and marketing side of things. So it also makes sense from a company perspective to structure it in this way if you just want to grow that brand.
Makes sense. I think that's a pretty fair take. Jack, I see with your hand raised on this particular point, but we've run over so much. We need to keep it moving right now. Hopefully you can come in on the Pacmoon stuff because we're going to get to that in just a second. So we'll want to come to you on that in just a bit. Let's get to the Web3 roundup to get you up to with everything else before we hit the final headlines for the day. Number one, Australia to launch its own Bitcoin ETF today. That's pretty cool news. Number two, Dapper Labs announces $4 million legal settlement to confirm Top Shot moments are not securities. That's pretty cool news, although albeit very expensive news. Number three, Coinbase Wallet facilitates meme coin texting. This was kind of cool that Jesse shared that it seems like you're able to text people or share value via meme coins via the Coinbase wallet. Next, Binance to restrict unauthorized stablecoins in Europe from June the 30th. Once again, Europe being incredibly difficult, having an incredibly difficult relationship with Binance. I think in the UK here, we can't even get to their website easily anymore. Next, Blast and Pepe's mint announced for Wednesday, the 5th of June. That is tomorrow. More on the SocialFi side, Fantasy Top announces league model change to more competitive and meritocratic experience. Interestingly, the activity seems to have dropped off a little bit there, but that means that the rewards have started to get a bit juicier from what I have been reading. And finally, 600,000 OP, which is the optimism token, is allocated for on-chain summer incentives. How do you enter a round? Each week, cast what you're building in on-chain summer on Farcaster. Results by community voting will be available at the end of each round on Farcaster and X. Optimism grants are always end up being really, really good for people. Just a lot of people are oblivious. So happy to bring that to people's attention. We've got a couple more headlines to hit before we close out the show in the final 10 minutes. The first one, which I think we'll go to directly, is the Pacmoon drop, where they dropped about $1 million worth of pack to content creators. And the price dipped maybe a little bit to about 170 million FTV or so. Now it's up to 180. I believe those numbers are correct. I might just double check that now. But Legendary, want to come to you first. Maybe we can throw it to Jack as well for some thoughts on Pacmoon if he's been participating. But Legendary first, what do you think on the Pacmoon drop and their method of distribution as they kind of grow this community coin?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's airdrop number 4 that we are seeing, and we are seeing the first airdrop in conjunction with the V2 with the validators also being live. So definitely, as you said, price is keeping stable because you just have the incentive to be a validator, to earn your validator points, to earn creator points by being validated by other validators. So it is very, very fascinating and very cool to see that they managed to keep that momentum despite still not breaking out of this like blast based habitat where they're in. It's not like a meme coin like Brett that people post and tweet about charts outside of the blast ecosystem, and they don't even want to be that. They just want to be cut the just they want to be, and they definitely are the number one community on Blast, and building those significant partnerships with other protocols and being able to display that like stability in the floor price after an airdrop is pretty impressive, because we didn't see that in the first 3 airdrops. So that's definitely something that I actually found surprising. Like, I expected a bit of a dump and was looking forward to buy that dump, but there was no dump.
Yeah, that was very interesting, right? Very interesting to see that just didn't really go anywhere this time. People were very happy to kind of stack Pacmoon. An interesting observation I had was that it was in the language. I think it might have been for D. I'm going to share this tweet. Look, I know people call people friends in this space, and they don't necessarily mean that they're friends, but maybe we do that a little bit as well. But I wanted to make a more interesting point about this. Dee's tweeted out, say, love to see no one dumping their Pacmoon on airdrop day. Now we just pray for another jackpot. I'm showing that on screen for people watching in on X and YouTube. But my interesting point, or an observation that I made, is that it's kind of different with this coin because we know some of the people, and they've legit reached out and like tried to build a community on a relatively personal level. Like I remember the first time I tweeted about Pacmoon, probably not even with the intention of participating in this in any way. I just wanted to tweet about it because it was relevant. I think Lambo reached out at one point in time, who's I guess been a content creator in the space for quite a long time, and we kind of knew each other anyway. And he was just, and then I think maybe even the official account potentially reached out to just kind of like thank me for my participation, for sharing the idea. And I don't know if that's something which is other people have as personal a connection with people. And I haven't heard the word community coin used as much as whether it is used with Pacmoon. Want to hear some of your thoughts on that. Want to throw to Jack first because definitely want to hear his thoughts on this. Jack, what do you think of this idea of Pacmoon as the community coin? Is that fair? Is it off? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just think it's a really smart strategy. I think you can get a little tied up in the Web3 bubble, not to sometimes look outside what's going on, what's happening across content more generally. And right now, what is happening is we're getting a huge impact from UGC, and we're also seeing a complete change from like these TikTok KOLs coming in and being able to basically bring an audience to these new brands. And it's becoming more and more about this like community driven run. It just doesn't happen with a KOL on their own anymore. And I think, look, coming back to Web3, it makes sense that if you're going to drop to content creators, I'm doing little air bubbles right now, they're going to know about the space. If you're going to drop to content creators in the Web3 space, they're going to know about the token. They're not just going to see something hop into their account and go, oh, I'm going to sell this. So yeah. I think that's, again, really smart strategy from them, because they're building that, building that reputation within the content creator space more generally. So yeah, I think it's really smart to drop to those people, knowing that you're gonna have a lesser drop than people who aren't aware of the ecosystem because they're not writing about it, they're not speaking about it.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very fair point. Incentivizing the creators or finding a way to align incentives with creators has definitely worked in their favor a lot. Sammy, want to come to you with maybe a conclusive point here. What have your strategies been for this? One of the things that creators often think about, and I've definitely thought about when it comes to being incentivized to write about particular things, is like you don't want to dilute your brand, right? You don't want to dilute your brand. You don't want to come off as annoying to people. You don't want people to not value your work if you start tweeting about Pacmoon and everyone knows you're tweeting about Pacmoon because you know about the airdrop, and everyone's kind of complicit in this. How have you made sure that you felt like you're producing the content in a way that is not diluted to your brand, that it is still valuable to people and kind of complements your other work?
Well, I think I've been covering the Blast ecosystem for some time now. I think there's certain protocols like Cambria, which I write about anyway. They've had integrations. There was quite a lot of organic integrations that I could talk about. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely been some posts where I'm like, okay, well, Gmoon, like this kind of stuff, like, that it's a little less educated in the content that's going out, but you kind of play along because you are part of the ecosystem, you are playing around, it's a bit of fun. But I do think that having that higher quality content makes sense. And I really like what they've done with the validators, that 10K threshold around, okay, well, you need to have 10K to then start validating. I think you have a lot of smaller creators that have received maybe 5, 6K. They're like, oh, actually, I quite enjoy becoming a validator. They buy an additional amount, become a validator, and then it kind of creates that stronger bond. And then you have a network of people on like nodes on the network interacting with each other, and then that value then compounds. So it's just interesting to see that. And I think in terms of the actual content going out, I think as long as it's relatively on brand and it's kind of in line with what you're talking about anyway, I don't think there's any harm in talking about Pacmoon, especially when it's been so innovative. Like there's not really been anything like this where you've got a community coin that has this decentralized ethos where they're now trying to get the community to take over that validation process. And that to me is really interesting. And because I find it interesting, I find it a lot easier to write about if I do decide to write about Pacmoon. So I think the fact that it's so innovative in itself, I think you could go down the whole spammy route of doing how, I don't know, like some of the other projects that kind of kicked off that spam meta. But I do think because it has that innovative angle, then you can create some more thoughtful content around that.
Yeah, that's a nice perspective. Legendary, I know you have one final comment to take us to the end of the show because we're at time. Let's hit it.
Absolutely, yeah. I love how genuine it is with the validating. You've seen the node meta buy weird gaming nodes that are validating a blockchain that doesn't really need your validation services in that way and doesn't work like that technically, but it's kind of trying to talk you into being a validator, which you don't are technically. And Pacmoon is taking this very genuine approach. They're not trying to bullshit you with some technical terms. You're literally validating content, very simple to understand point mechanism. And I like that no bullshit approach of it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There is a little bit of an annoying aspect to it as well, though, where people are like, I don't know, just farming for likes and doing all that kind of thing, which I guess is an inevitable thing, but something to navigate, as Sammy was explaining, how some strategies of like how to navigate that in a better way. So interesting discussion, definitely doing something innovative. I know lots of people are watching. I saw Frank Degods speak about Pacmoon specifically and how they seem to be innovating in the way that they are distributing their token in waves so that there isn't all of the sell pressure in one go, so that people can kind of they can increase demand as supply increases in a very thoughtful way. But look, that's the end of our show. That is at time. We hope you had a good listen today, listen or watch, depending where you are. But as always, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. BST. We talk about the NFT market, the crypto market, and how to ideally make some money on the internet. I'm your host, B-Check. Thank you to my legendary co-host, Legendary, and Sammy. Thank you to our other contributors, Jack, Funky, Kusho, and Tiro up on stage with us. And thank you for joining us in the audience. We hope you have a wonderful day. We'll be back with you again tomorrow, of course. Take care. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.